love being with the students, and I just feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Excellent.
And I found service learning and philanthropy education through an Fisher, Max and Marjorie, I think it is, Fisher training in Battle Creek, Michigan. And it like sparked a light in me, and it was what I had been looking for. I had been looking for something to help my students bridge real life with their educational goals, because my students that come out of poverty, they need to know that you're not giving them extra. They need to know that you are providing things that they are going to be able to use in the future. And I believe that the projects and things that I've done through Learning to Give and the philanthropy education has helped my students realize that I mean what I say, and then they get to do fun things too.
Excellent. Catherine, can you go in a little bit about just some of the lessons and projects that you have done that you've infused with Learning to Give resources?
Yes, I always do the Blue Sky project at the beginning of the year because it helps the students envision what their idea of a perfect world would be, and it helps me to know what things are important to them, so it can help me steer them into choosing projects that they can do that they will be engaged in because it's their passions to do. I can't think of the name of it. I think it's All in a Day's Work, and it's a lesson that you have them do a schedule of what they do each hour in the day, and then we talk about which hour would you be willing to give up in order to do something for someone else, and we look at some of those things they do and suggest, raking a neighbor's lawn, or helping the neighbor lady carry in her groceries, or any kind of volunteer work that you'd be willing to do to give up an hour of what you like to do for that hour to give to someone else. And then I also have written my own unit that's on the Learning to Give site, and I'll be darned if I can remember the name of it.
Betsy, do you remember the name of it?
Just a minute, I'll tell you the name of it. It is From Struggle to Success, yes. I have a hard time. It's From Struggle to Success, and it comes from the experience of working with my students and tapping into some of their struggles and showing how we can use our struggles to become better. And it brings in spoken word poetry, and it has been one of the best lessons that I have ever done. And I worked with some professional poets, and they taught me some of the tricks in it. And it's always very eye-opening and very encouraging for my students.
Excellent. Can you talk a little bit about student transformation, and maybe a specific example of seeing transformation in your students?
Yeah, and one of the projects that we did was we went and served at a local soup kitchen, and even though my kids come from what we would consider poverty, a lot of them look at the people that have to go to soup kitchens, they call them bums. They don't understand that it could be someone just like them who just lost a job and just can't make their paycheck stretch. And so we went and served at the soup kitchen to give them the experience, and they actually saw some of their neighbors in there. And one boy, though, stood against the wall, and he just was looking back and forth, and he was very, very overwhelmed. He just couldn't fathom, ever being in that situation himself. And he couldn't even move to help serve food. He just kind of stood there like a deer in the headlights. And we had a really great conversation, though, afterwards. We debriefed, and the lady who ran the kitchen told some stories about who some of the people were there and what they had done. Some had been like business executives. One lady sent her kids in there during the summer because her husband left and she didn't have the income to make the food stretch during the summer. And he had a very, very good reflection afterwards, and he said, I was scared to death at the beginning, but I can see now that it could happen to anyone. And that was like a huge light bulb moment, and it actually helped his and my connection in the classroom from that point on too.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. Does anyone else have kind of that light bulb moment feeling with a student, you know, something similar or kind of close to anything that Kathy's experienced?
Anyone on?
I know. There are people on, they're all just muted. Right. We'll move on, Kathy. Feel free to, if you have questions or something pops into your mind as we talk with Kathy, you can write a question in the chat box. I know that Betsy found both of those resources that Kathy referenced, so you can easily copy and paste it and see what she was talking about. And if you have a question, chat it in there, or turn your mic on and then hop on and ask a question as well. Kathy, I want to talk a little bit about how you balance standard student needs and administrative goals as an educator and a teacher right now. What is that like for you?
So my big thing is that implementing learning to give lessons isn't extra. It is how I weave into my curriculum and the requirements, and because learning to give has great connections with what standards it meets, I can hit the goals that I have to hit for my units while embedding lessons from learning to give into my current curriculum that I'm required to teach. And the learning to give lessons are quite often the ones that get the kids up and talking and moving around. And my administrators are always looking for active learning and collaboration. And so the learning to give lessons help me meet those goals and things when I'm being evaluated too.
Excellent. As part of that, I'm wondering, you know, your process or experience with the mentor-mentee relationship. Are you working closely, you know, with your administration in that way, or did you kind of buddy with another teacher? You know, you said you kind of started in teaching kind of a little bit later in your career. So, you know, what does that mentor-mentee relationship look like for you, and how does that influence your teaching practice?
So what I have is I have a resource teacher that partners with me 2 or 3 hours out of a day. And in the past, that has been the person that I've worked with, and they've worked with me to do the projects and things like that. And then I've also collaborated with other teachers in the building who do a lot of service. And we just, I think only 3 or 4 of us at the current time in my building have been through the service learning training, but we have a building that is very giving, and we do a lot of projects even though they haven't been in training. We just do a lot of outreach to our community.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure that you were on for our talk about Lead Your School and that new resource that we have on the webpage. So I'm not sure that you've seen it actually. But I know that that's part of what your school, you know, they see that as part of their mission. But talk a little bit about trying to get, you know, buy-in maybe from other teachers on projects that you know you want to do or lessons you want to implement. You know, how do you kind of navigate that process?
Well, the thing is that, and this used to be my excuse, where am I going to find the time? Where am I going to find the money? And I have discovered that it's really not that difficult to write grants. In fact, during conferences tonight, I was writing one when I had a little downtime between parents, because there's one that's due tomorrow and I forgot about it. And so we can get what we need if we reach out to our community too. We had a church take up a special offering and donate, and we were able to take all the kids in our building that had had A's, B's, and C's and no behavior issues bowling one afternoon. And so we, you know, if we reach out and make those connections with community members, they're more than willing to come in and help us. And our district also just got a huge grant, a 5-year, $50 million grant, and they are working with us to provide opportunities to help our kids have experiences that will help them be better learners.
Wow, excellent. Sorry, I'm making a note about that grant.
That's okay.
With that, reaching out to the community, I think that you said it right there, in terms of you just need to ask, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
a lot of times, you know, there are things that maybe you think might be fun to do, and one that, like you said, time is always a factor. But two, just asking. And so, do you have any, you know, are they connections that you have on a personal level, or are they things, you know, in terms of student agency where they say, you know, we want to do this or we'd like to do this? You know, how do you reach out to those community members or organizations? Is there, you know, do you start with an email?
Yeah.
Call?
I taught my kids how to make phone calls. So I'll stand with them and kind of coach them through, and we'll write down what they need to say. We did that when we had like our homeless shelter person come and talk to us. And she realized that she was really good on the phone, the girl that we volunteered to do it, and she was scared to death. But once she got out, she goes, that wasn't so hard. And so I've used connections with students' parents. We did a staff versus student basketball fundraiser, and through our parents, we got tons of raffle donations to give out prizes when people would buy the raffle tickets. And most of them were through connections with parents in their workplaces and then local businesses, that then we had the kids go out in their neighborhoods with a script and tell them what we were doing and asking them if they would donate.
Love it, love it, love it. And was there, you know, response, again, like you said, kind of scared at first, but after the fact, you know, their confidence was higher and they understood that they could do it, it wasn't so bad?
Right. And I actually then, because I have children in the military too, we have done some military gift, little bag projects. And last year, at the end of the year, I had gone to our high school graduation, and I walked across the parking lot with two boys that had been in my class in 7th grade, and they really made me like want to cry almost. I was so happy because they were telling me how much it meant to them to be able to fill those goodie bags for the military, and how it had sparked them to keep doing that through high school. And that's exactly what the purpose is of doing this. It's to help future, adults become people that give back to their community and give and volunteer and help the community be a good community.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I think there's really only, one other kind of question that I wanted to ask, and then I'll kind of open it up for anybody else if you're interested. Oh, Betsy has a question. If you want to answer.
Yeah, I see that. She asked me if I've always had a heart for giving. And basically, yes, I was raised that way. I'll tell you, I grew up in a funeral home. My dad was the local mortician. And so we always had people in and out of our house, whether they were alive or not alive, but their families were there. And so my home was always an open door. And I watched because my dad's business hours were not real regular because we lived in a small town, I watched him in his off time going and doing lawn work for elderly neighbors. And he was always helping other people. That's just how he was. And my grandparents were that way too. And so that was kind of in me to always help other people and volunteer. And it was exciting to me when I realized there was actually something called service learning or philanthropy education, that I could connect it to my classroom.
Betsy, do you have any follow-up for her on that?
No, I just know Kathy well enough to know that she has a heart for it. So I'm really excited that she could bring that into her teaching. I wanted other people to do that.
Sometimes I do it too much.
Another question I had for you, Kathy, is talk a little bit about, some teachers say they work in isolation a little bit or in a silo. What do you wish you could talk about more with colleagues on a professional level? What kind of groups are you a part of where you can collaborate and bounce ideas off of other teachers?
Well, my district is big into PLCs, professional learning communities, And so I meet once a week with my grade level PLC, which is the team that I work with, the core teachers. And then I meet twice a month with my subject PLC, the other 7th grade middle school English teacher who is in a different building across town. So we meet twice a month and are able to collaborate. My grade level team, because we're in the same building, that's easier to talk about things, but sometimes we have a scripted agenda that we have to follow, and we don't always have time to talk about doing, you know, the philanthropic things with our students. Mm-hmm. And so I wish we sometimes could dedicate more time to that, but we work so collaboratively that our students see that we're on the same page with a lot of things, and they'll say, well, how did you know that? And I said, because I talked to your other teacher. We communicate with each other. And so it's very helpful that we do have the PLCs, although sometimes it's frustrating that it does take up some time that we could be doing other things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Does anyone else, I'm going to open it up kind of for questions, comments, insights, maybe areas where you have a similar experience to Kathy. If you want to share a little bit or ask Kathy a question, I'm going to stop talking for a second and let you, if you're willing.
Everyone's quiet.
Any questions for Kathy, anybody? Or comments?
I don't have a question. I had I was kind of in and out, and so was my connection for a minute. But part of what, oh, can you hear me now though? This is Leah.
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. Well, when you were just mentioning about the kind of the personal connection you were able to make with the student because of going to the soup kitchen.
Yep.
And I have noticed that on some of the activities that I've done, in particular one where students were learning to loom hats, like basically they were knitting, but they're using a loom to do it. And 90% of the students have never done it before, and they all think they will not succeed. They all think they can't do it.
Yep.
And it's amazing how they are able to, press on and continue and learn and get through their first hat and then make more, some of them. And the other thing is that they always, I just think that they surprise themselves and then feel so good, like they've done it for someone else and they've done something they never thought they could do.
Yeah. One of my other favorite projects is my students make children's books every year through learning the plot of a story, and they make them for kindergartners at the elementary across the street from us, and I have seen some of the toughest kids' hearts melt when they're holding a kindergartner on their lap reading their book to them. And I've had the best attendance and the best turn-in rate of any assignment ever when we do those books, because they know they're paired with a little kid and they don't want to let them down.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Leah. Does anyone else have any thoughts or input? I think I see a comment on the type part.
Oh,
See that comment?
I asked if the principal's supportive.
And I was ready to help. This is my first.
Oh yeah, Barbara, is your principal supportive? I mean, Kathy.
Are you asking me that, Leah?
No, either of you. It looks like Barbara asked the question, is your principal supportive? So it might be for Kathy, it might be for Leah. Let's say both of you answer that question.
Well, I will say that I have never had problems with administrative support around anything to do with philanthropy. And I think part of it is because it's authentic. Like, we're giving them opportunities to actually connect to the community and to be able to be better. I mean, I don't know. I've never had trouble with administrator support.
I haven't either.
Okay. Well, we do know it happens in some places, unfortunately. So, you know, thinking about how, again, in that kind of Lead Your School page even, and then that why philanthropy graphic is something that you could employ, Barbara, if you ever run into, you know, questions or concerns about why you want to do a service learning project or why you're infusing philanthropy into a lesson. And then there are a couple other comments if you all kind of want to look at the chat section. Sava talks about relating to Kathy because she was raised in a family that was also giving. And so I'm glad, Sava, that you're enjoying this first meeting. Yeah.
If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or contact me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love to share what I'm doing.
Okay.
I have Kathy's Twitter and Instagram up, so if you're on either of those platforms, please follow her and tweet out and like her posts when she shares what her students are doing. Lisa, I'm trying to read through your comment here real quick.
She said she's working with the neighborhood Big and Littles, and she mentors 20 teachers. That's cool.
Planting areas. Rock Garden of Love, nice. Is that Rock Garden, Lisa? If you want to type it for a response real quick, are you doing like doodle stones? Are the kids drawing on the rocks? Just out of curiosity, if you thought of that lesson, or if you haven't, we're happy to send you that resource. It's a really, really cool project. Kathy, did you do that one? Doodle stones? I think you might have.
She said yes, kind words and thoughts.
Excellent. Good.
My kids did the doodle stones at the beginning of the year too, and they loved coloring them, and they put them over in the bushes at our elementary, and the little kids thought it was great to go find them. So.
Excellent. All right. Any other comments, Kathy, that you might want to share just with the group as a whole, you know, overall thoughts or, you know.
Just be encouraged. Not every project works like you think it should, but even when it doesn't work like you think it should, your students are getting something out of it that you might have never imagined. And if you take and make sure you do the reflection, because that's what when you're going to find what they actually have gotten out of it. And some of the things they say have totally surprised me and moved me to tears.
Excellent. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for participating in our first ever Learning to Give collaborative interview. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks for getting me out of conferences a half hour early.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah, and again, we'll follow up with an email, and it'll have the slide, and we'll also, if you're okay with it, Kathy, we'll share your email. So if anyone wants to contact you personally or directly, we can do that. So we're gonna move on from this portion if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just that was lovely. I really appreciated that and then enjoyed that conversation, Kathy. All right, so we talked about Lead Your School, and Kathy, you'll get all this information as well because I think you missed it. We talked about current events. We talked about Happy Acts. I mentioned the calendar art contest. This is our big thing coming up. And you'll start to see more information about this coming down the pipeline over the next month or so. It's our tote challenge, and we're really excited about this project for Earth Day this year. Not that we're not excited for any other project or lesson that we have going on, but this one, we're really excited about the possibilities for you and your students in your community. So the tote challenge is all about talking about issues around plastic bags, right? Plastic bags are bad for the environment. We know that. There are plastic bags at every grocery store you go to. People get bags and bags and bags. Some people use them, for trash bins in their own houses, and then they end up in the landfill and they don't decompose and all of those things. So what can we do about it? What can students do about it? And so we are putting out this challenge. And it's a foot challenge. So we're asking students to take old t-shirts and turn them into grocery totes and share out what they're doing and how creative they're being, whether they're just tying the t-shirts, whether they're actually sewing, gluing, whatever it is that they're doing to those shirts. We're asking them to share using that tote challenge hashtag through social media. So I'm going to take you to that page so you can kind of see it in more detail in terms of the lesson itself. But we're really excited about it, and this is one that we know any classroom K through 12 could implement. You could make it as easy as possible for the real little ones to kind of understand, the issues with bags, and they too can make a tote out of a t-shirt. Something that you could even bring in a family member for a project day, and they could help them actually make the tote with a t-shirt. That you could connect if you're a younger classroom with a high school or a middle classroom, and connect students to make totes together, do it in groups, or however you may want to. But this is the lesson here, linked right on the website. We're thinking it's just, one class period for the actual lesson itself, plus time for the practice. And really, it's exciting. It's one that we think students will really like to be a part of. It's creative. It's going to use a little bit of engineering. You'll have to do a little bit of math, maybe. All of those things can be added into it. And we did include something that you can share with parents so that you don't have to do it yourself. We wrote a letter. So you could print this and send this home if you're planning on doing the project. And it tells parents about why you're doing the lesson in the classroom, tells them about the need for a used t-shirt, asks them not to buy any t-shirts for this project, but we'll be able to find enough used or old t-shirts. They don't need to do anything new. And so all that information is right here for them. Easy for you to just sign and send back so that your students can participate in the project. Have any of you ever done a project similar to this or something, kind of like this for Earth Day? Is it fairly new? We're thinking it's new. We've done, we did a little bit of a search, when we were pulling this together and working with some teachers to get the lesson organized. So, it's something that's exciting. Have any more thoughts to say about it? Betsy?
We're hoping to get some buzz around this. We added some little minor projects, little minor discussions, like brainstorm things you can do with plastic bags to reuse them. To bring out some research skills of what happens to plastic. And so we think it's a pretty rich, brief lesson, and we hope people will share it, do it as a whole school. Love your feedback if you have ideas.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, take some time. I mean, we have this live on the website, but we won't really be pushing it out in terms of our efforts to kind of get it to the masses until like March 10th or so. So we have about a week. So if you wouldn't mind kind of looking through it and just kind of combing it and seeing what you think, if you have something else to add, if you've used a video before in your classroom that talks about recycling or any of those things, please let us know so that we can make it as strong and impactful as possible.
There's some chat about plastic bags and projects.
Did a lot with reuse for the plastic bags jumps. Oh yes, Lisa, I saw something about that. You can tie the bags, right, and make jump ropes out of them, grocery bags. I think that's what you're talking about. Does anyone else know?
That would be a fun thing to share.
Isn't that neat? Yeah, maybe we should add that to it as an option in that first portion.
Saba mentioned that there's a penalty for using plastic in some cities and countries. And I think that is another research point in the lesson, find out where plastic bags are banned.
Yep.
And another spin-off would be that they might advocate for a ban on plastic bags.
Yeah.
And there's actually quite a bit of misinformation about the effects of plastic. What are the toxins? How much does it break down? Where does it go? It's a very rich research topic.
I love those ideas to be able to add to it.
Mats.
A friend of mine has made mats out of them by weaving them together.
Yeah, and Lisa added another multidisciplinary element, physical fitness.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of language, problem solving.
Excellent. So yeah, and that's one too that we hope that, you know, as a LTG Collaborative member that you'll employ for Earth Day or sometime before the end of the school year. And if you have already planned out your calendar and you're already using Learning to Give lessons between now and then, you know, it's a resource that we'd love for you to share with your colleagues at your school and in your community. And that's something too that we know it can be done outside of school. So after school programs, local clubs, yeah, those are things. That's a resource, you know, like many of our others. But that one, you know, in particular, can be used in a variety of different scenarios. So please feel free to share it with the people in your life that you think might use that with the young people in their lives. So it's open discussion time right now. Does anyone have a comment, a question, anything to share with the group that you're thinking about or thought about either today or over the last few months?
Something to ask the group?
All right, so I will pull us to a close then. It doesn't sound like there's anything extra we want to talk about. If between now and the next meeting, which is scheduled for April 4th, where we're trying to adjust times a little bit to see what will work best for people. So we tried this evening time, you know, thumbs up, thumbs down if you're on screen, or, you know, if you can type in the chat, yes, I like this time versus 4:30. Which is what we have scheduled tentatively for April 4th. Let us know, you know, what time frame is kind of that sweet spot. I know we can't always hit it for everybody, but we're hoping to be able to grow this community and time of your free time. We understand the importance of that. So we want to make sure that we're picking a time that works into your schedules. Our next meeting will include another interview. We're talking to Maria Found from New Hampshire. So she'll be sharing similar ideas and her experiences as a teacher, like Kathy did today. And then I wanted to make sure that you're all aware that we do now have a Learning to Give landing page, Learning to Give landing page, not Learning to Give webpage, LTG Collaborative, the Facebook page. So we have this. There's different things here. We've had, you know, some participation here and there, but this is just something to share it. If you see something interesting, you know, if there's a news article out and you're like, oh, that's, you know, if that sparks your interest, it'll probably pique someone else's interest too. So share it. Don't be afraid to use this page. It's here so that you can continue conversations after we get off this webinar. So don't forget about that. And then also we do have now the landing page. So if you're looking to share the LTG Collaborative opportunity with colleagues, please send them to this page. It talks about different meeting dates. It shows them how to join if they're interested in joining and participating. We do have collaboration opportunities. So if you're looking to connect with other classrooms, help you do that. If you're interested in you know, helping with content on the website, we can help organize that as well. So be sure to use this as a resource and a point of reference. You'll see all the members that we have. I know we have a pretty small group on the phone right now, but these are all people that have signed up to be a part of this group. And so we're hoping that more and more we can get more people engaging in this way. So, and I see that Barbara, you just tried to on the collaborative, so I'll approve that for you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Excitement? Oh, one more thing. Don't miss this conversation. Oh, Betsy, you said that. But yes. Oh, yes. Maria, one of our teachers is working to collaborate with a school in Brazil. And we were actually, Betsy and I were approached by the teacher from Brazil looking to connect with a classroom in the United States. And so we were able to facilitate that connection. And they'll actually, they're planning on before the end of the school year doing a Skype kind of interview session between classrooms so that they can interact and engage and talk with one another to learn about their different cultures and experiences. So we can do that kind of thing too with a little bit of our international presence if that's of interest. Okay. All right, I just want to do one more. Thank you, Kathy, for your time tonight and your willingness to participate in an interview with us. I will follow up tomorrow with the slides that we had today and with all those different links we talked about. And actually, there'll be a recording available if you're interested. I'll have that linked as well. Okay? Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you again next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.